Welcome to the Humans of Hospitality podcast with me, Mark Cribb, and another week flies by, and if I'm honest, if you have an interest in the hospitality sector, particularly restaurants, things have not really got any prettier this week. We're still being informed, we'll be the last sector to open, and with physical distancing enforced, many operators are crunching the numbers and letting the public and the government know that the opening is likely to be financially unviable for most people for quite some time to come. But many high-profile chefs and hospitality bigwigs have been getting significant coverage for the kind of support that we're going to need. From the National Time Out campaign for 9 months rent-free, to raising the bar to get the £51,000 rateable value lifted for grants, to a potential drop in VAT for 12 months at least, and the staggered extension of the furlough scheme for the hospitality sector, there are still a lot of unknowns, but plenty of initiatives that are very much worth fighting for and that will increase our industry's chance of survival. If you've not done so yet, do head over to the website hospitalityunion.co.uk, where there are already over 2,500 hospitality business owners who are joining forces to positively campaign for assistance, and you can join up on that site. It's with that backdrop in this week's episode I am chatting with Stephen Lamb. Now, Stephen is particularly well known for having worked with River Cottage right from its foundation years, and now he makes a living consulting, presenting, training, writing and more. As a freelancer, falling between the gaps of all the personal and business support in this crisis, I wanted to see what Stephen was doing to try and navigate a way through the challenges, particularly his moves into the online world, trying to run virtual food festivals, online training, and a health and well-being site, Slow Life, Good Life. I love this sector for its speed of creativity, its optimism and its can-do attitude to pivot and find a way through whatever it takes. And I hope that conversations with the likes of Steve provide a little bit of inspiration on standing up and thinking outside the box so that we don't all just end up sobbing and rocking in a corner. And remember, whilst I know times are tough, if you can support the podcast by hopping over to the Patreon site, please do go to humansofhospitality.co.uk/donate, and there you'll find the tip jar and more to help keep us on the air. Okay, thank you so much, and for now, please do enjoy this week's conversation with Stephen. Stephen Lamb, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Very much appreciated. First of all, before we start, how are you and your family? Everybody healthy and well?
Yeah, hi Mark. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for asking about the family. Yeah, they're great actually. Currently got the girls doing their homeschooling, which is it's challenging for me, not so much for them.
How old are the girls, Steve?
So we're 6, nearly 9. I think we're heading for a lockdown birthday there, and 10.
Oh wow, blimey, all girls.
All girls, yeah.
Yeah, I have my daughter she's stuck on the BBC Bite Size, I think, at the moment, which is her preferred way of learning. She's 10 and she's quite enjoying that. But yeah, homeschooling has got its challenges, although it sounds very quiet. You've done very well to keep them quiet.
Well, you know, I can't quite believe it's that quiet. It's a busy household, very lively. The girls are very gregarious. In fact, they're a bit more tech savvy than I am. And
never.
Yeah, seriously. And they're on their phones, FaceTiming and helping each other out, chatting to their friends. Because that's one of the things really that has affected them, you know, not being able to go to school. They're missing their chums. And so, you know, the homeschooling is a challenge because I don't know what a compound fraction is. But, you know, it's kind of using technology in a good way instead of that sort of insular, isolating way. It's very much creating a lovely little school network. So I think it's good. It's good.
Yeah, that's nice. And I think girls are different to boys, to be fair, because my son is a bit like me, probably, in the fact that he's probably born to self-isolate. He's quite happy to be a miserable sod and sit at home and just play on his Xbox, whereas my daughter seems to be able to spend the entire day on WhatsApp video and chat to her friends all day long. So yeah, slightly different, even at a young age. When I came down and spoke to you, we were in that beautiful wooden villa in I think it was your in-laws' garden. So you're not there. You're at home, are you?
Yeah, I'm at home. That's funny. You call it a villa, and we call it the hut.
So it's not a hut. It's not. Yeah, come on. It's got running water and bedrooms,
okay.
It was lovely.
Let's compromise. Let's call it a cabin.
Okay, cabin. I did wonder what the word was. Cabin. I'll go with cabin.
Yeah. So I'm at home downstairs, sitting next to the inglenook fireplace, facing a corner as if I'm in detention, but with a view out of the window, and there's this funny stuff falling from the sky I haven't seen for ages.
Yeah, as a seafront restaurateur, Stephen, this is the first rain we've pretty much had in about six weeks, and I could imagine how busy I would have been if we'd been open. But today's not about me. So you make your living in a variety of ways, but pretty much all linked to food in some guise, whether that's books or consultancy or events. Have you got anything still ticking along, or have you been pretty much in full shutdown?
Well, I've got a lot on, actually, but in the old sense of working and receiving an income, that's changed dramatically. I think, like a lot of people in the hospitality sector, there's been this huge sort of invisible pause button. And my calendar, the family Gruffalo calendar, my column on the family calendar was just wiped out. All the things that I was working out, apart from one thing, actually, which I'll perhaps talk about later on. But I'm busy. I think there's a point where you cannot just be sat at home wringing your hands and worrying. You've got to try and do something. And what I've discovered that people in all sorts of, different sectors, but particularly because my network is hospitality, I've seen some real positivity, and people have risen to a very challenging time. And I've been working on a few projects. I think within about 3 hours of the Prime Minister saying the word lockdown, total lockdown, some friends of ours, Beth and Paul Kempton, who we got to know, my wife and I, at the school gates, which is another platform where I used to love to have a chat. I was a great sort of school gate chatter, and I'm missing that. But my business it takes me all over the place, particularly the teaching. And one of the things that means is that, as you know, weekends tend to be, or the build up to weekends tend to be, the point where you're most busiest. And it's the point where the family are not doing so much because they have conventional school times or conventional jobs. And I was trying to work out with my wife how to create a bit more balance and be at home. And, that's almost impossible. But we were thinking of doing quite a lot of stuff online, because I think, teaching online or doing classes or seminars, it kind of worked a part of what I did. And then lockdown happened, and our two friends, Beth and Paul, who already have an online business, said, well, we've been thinking about doing this. And we said, well, that was funny. We were thinking about doing the same. And then we created this platform. And it's slowlifegoodlife.com. It's a website. And the aim of it is to try and create content so that people who are self-isolating, socially distancing, or on lockdown themselves could spend time learning how to bake bread, how to make sausages. We've got yoga teachers. We've got people who work with nature and crafting, musicians, fitness and well-being gurus, and they all post little videos onto our website. And it's a subscription model. And 3 times a week, we upload videos and have created quite a nice little vibe. So, we're busy doing that.
Yeah, amazing. It's funny what good stuff comes out of this. I think hospitality is full of creative people, I think, isn't it? And just creating a little bit of space in their heads. Lots of good stuff comes out of it. And a need, I suppose, in many ways, to work out some sort of financial strategy. Speaking of which, do you qualify for any kind of grants? I presume you can't furlough yourself, or can you? Have you got any support?
Well, I think that somebody somewhere who came up with the idea of grants, business loans, furloughs, and any kind of possible chance to get some money. They probably went onto my profile and went, that's the shape of the person that fits into every possible gap. And, it's typical because you and I imagine that you're the same as me, because whenever there's a drop-down menu trying to explain what you do, I never find the category that suits me or fits me. I'm this kind of, it's the trouble with having a portfolio career. But I must say, I think if I delved deeper and tried to find it, I currently don't, but potentially.
No.
Well,
you're probably right. I thought it's interesting to know that Rishi revolved it around you, Stephen, because I thought he revolved it around me. So that's interesting to know, because even with a business, my team are furloughed, which is great, but I don't qualify as a company director, and our rateable values mean with the 3 premises we've got, of the 75k that we would supposedly qualify for, we actually only qualify for 10 due to our rateable values, which doesn't seem particularly fair, because I'm equally, along with all the other restaurateurs, we have £0 revenue. So it would be nice if that got reassessed. But no, I presumed that was the case, and you too would be falling through the cracks. So I guess some of this comes from a financial motivation as well. So we'll come back to Slow Life, Good Life, but just in general, you're well connected in the Southwest. Have you seen some good examples? I know you did a virtual food festival recently, for example, but so what's the general vibe with your comrades, shall we say, down there in the food community? What sort of good stuff's happening?
Well, I think that there's a spirit born out of necessity, really, to try and get produce that they've grown. Say, for example, I'm in a privileged position because I know a lot of people who grow food, produce amazing food, restaurants, chefs. Okay, and just because the restaurants have closed doesn't mean to say that produce has stopped growing. Here we are bang in the middle of asparagus. Well, not in the just beginning, really. A very short window of growing asparagus. All of this has no outlet now. So producers are going, well, where can I put my asparagus? It doesn't, it can't be left in the field to rot. And so there's a lot of innovation going on. A lot of people that I know have moved onto an online model, and they're trying to sell things via their website, where previously they hadn't really thought about that because they had shops and restaurants. There was a community shop which opened up in Roosden, which is just 5 minutes away from where I live in Lyme Regis, and it was a great idea, and then it got busy, and then it was difficult to manage the social distancing, and so all these kind of different issues have arisen. But I think the restaurant and hospitality world has particularly focused on supporting one another. And you mentioned the food festival, the virtual food festival, which we did on Bank Holiday Monday over Easter, and we've done another one recently, and we continue to do more. And that is a way of showcasing all the fantastic producers up and down the country, not just in the Southwest. And we're getting some pretty amazing chefs like Rick Stein and Mark Hicks and Nathan Outlaw and Jack Stein and Ross Geach, who are the co-founders, the brains behind it, really looking to support and champion producers, albeit with a sense of entertainment. And the financial element of putting on a virtual food festival online, I mean, it's quite difficult, but we've got this platform partner called Crowdfunder, and they enable us to put up a small ticket price or rewards or prizes that people can pay for. For example, they can come and sit on our Zoomcast live on YouTube and ask questions directly to the chefs. And it's kind of weird because I'm sat in my kitchen in Lyme Regis, and there's Rick Stein in his kitchen in Sydney, and then somebody from another part of the world comes in on the screen and goes, "Oh, hi, you two. Rick, what's that fish you're cooking?" It's very interactive. It takes a lot of work and effort, but the whole thing that underpins it is, let's try and entertain one another. Let's get some big names to show people how they can support the struggling hospitality sector, particularly those people who are producers and suppliers that, underpin the whole thing. So, that's been a success.
It's really cool, that. I love it. I mean, in some ways, it's a shame because you're never going to recreate the buzz and the vibe of, some of the other food festivals that I know you host, and the energy in those kind of spaces and the smells and all that kind of stuff is very different. But it is quite cool that you can link up somebody from New York, Sydney, Lyme Regis, all at the same time and have the shared experience. This lockdown would have been much more torturous without the internet, I think, wouldn't it? Even having you and I having conversations like this, we're lucky, really.
Yeah, we are. And, I think that I've found a new respect for the internet and online technology. I think if you manage it in a perhaps a more positive way, because all of a sudden, rather than going in a room of lots of people and being insular on your phone and ignoring those people around you, lockdown, for me, I'm quite fortunate because I'm with my family and we do have outside space, and they're all healthy. But the new way that we started to apply the technology means we're actually connecting with other people as opposed to ignoring those people closer to it.
Yeah. And if you think of the sort of, hopefully not the long term implications of this, but the medium term, yeah, exactly, who knows? Yeah, well, we're going to demonstrate our lack of knowledge now, Stephen, probably by talking about it. But do you still have bookings in for the sort of latter part of the summer for certain food festivals, or have they all been postponed?
Some have been postponed, and some are, and I take postponed as a sort of a slightly more positive term than cancelled. But I think I'm just really, grabbing on with fingernails in the sense of hope. Of course, obviously, everybody needs to think about the safety and health of other people, and you can't be selfish about it. But there's the Good Life experience, which is a festival which still is talking as if they're going to go ahead. There's another one that is food and drink, which was postponed and have got new dates for it. There was a whole kind of grey area, as you know, with restaurants and events, where there was this suggestion that, if they cancelled, they would be responsible for the cancellation. Or when the word came from the government, then there was a sense of, oh, well, maybe we'll be recompensed because it wasn't us who cancelled. And, that was all very tricky, wasn't it?
Well, it seemed to be a bit of a myth. I think there was certainly the talk was going around, if you were forced to close by the government, that your business interruption insurance would kick in and it would cover events and it would cover restaurants and the like, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Although I had a good chat with Jack Stein. I wonder how he's getting on, because he seemed to be one of the few that thought he might be covered. But in general, 99% of everybody I'm speaking to, does not have any insurance.
Yeah.
And therefore, without these summer events, so many of us in the Southwest particularly, I guess, make our money in the summer to survive the winter. And without them, it's tricky to know how they're going to get through next winter, I guess.
Yeah, well, one of the cookery schools, Vale House, that I teach at just outside of Bath, we're having talks about doing classes online, and that model, which we were thinking about anyway before all of this happened, might be one way of still engaging with their customers or new customers. And I think that people are slightly more forgiving currently because they're not looking for super slick and 5-star productions, as we've been showing on Slow Life, Good Life and the Virtual Food Festival. I think that there's a sort of a need to create good content, but it doesn't have to be a Hollywood version of that. And so I think it can be fairly easy to do as long as you've got the right space, the social distancing, somebody who can point an iPhone and somebody who can talk at the iPhone and show them what they can do.
Yeah, no, you're right. It does. It creates a world of opportunity. A world of opportunity that I guess doesn't work for the restaurateurs. What's your personal thoughts? I guess I'm guessing you're chatting to friends who run restaurants and run pubs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What's your personal perspective on how this is going to pan out over the next few months? Are they expecting to open at some point over the summer? Have you had conversations around if there's any point to opening, if you need to lose half of the tables in your space? Have you got a perspective?
Yeah. So there's a whole load of issues, and I think there's a desire to want to get back and open, but I think it's very prohibitive. For one, as you just mentioned, the space that would be required between diners probably means that you won't be having a romantic dinner for two, and banquet style dining isn't going to happen either. The amount of covers in a restaurant, which generates income because you've got more people in, that's going to be affected. I think also it would be a slightly sterile atmosphere. I can't imagine people who are engaging, who work front of house, walking around with masks on, wearing gloves. I don't think that's going to evoke appetite. And the main issue is, of course, cost, like the rental on restaurants. And if you can't earn money by not having enough people in or even being open, then that's just going to cripple a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. It's we've been looking at this in my restaurants and partly just sort of pacing out, putting the tables apart, and how few covers you can get in with the amount of square meters you require to keep a sort of a table of 2 meters from anybody else. But yeah, I just think hospitality is such a beautiful industry that when you walk into a restaurant, it's the welcome smile, it's the eye contact, it's the touchy feely intangibles of energy. I've always said, it's the art of being a restaurateur and not the science of being a restaurateur.
Yeah.
It's very hard to imagine in our culture, although I'm looking over at China and Hong Kong and seeing some of the restaurants there with perspex screens between tables and people wearing masks. But yeah, I can't help but feel that if that was the sort of hospitality experience you were going to get, why wouldn't you just stay at home or get a takeaway? It's hard to imagine in the UK where pubs and especially as we're coming into the winter and you've got kind of log burners in the corner and everybody crowds around the bar and gets a pint of ale, and it's that cozy energy that's created. It's very difficult, isn't it, to imagine the future of hospitality over the next 6 or 9 months.
Yeah, I mean, all the great things about hospitality are stripped out in that sense, aren't they? And, you can imagine that the sort of places which might choose a model of like Harvester, where you go, you have your table and you kind of go to the place where you serve yourself food from a counter, and then like a canteen, I guess. But that's not really what going out is all about. It's about service. It's about people connecting. It's all of those emotional, tactile things that you just can't imagine not doing. It's the experience is lost, I think. I don't have a very positive view on it.
No, well, it's been interesting, hasn't it? I think when I've been doing these sort of reactive podcasts, I suppose, for probably the last 4 or 5 weeks, pretty much since this happened, chatting specifically with previous guests about their perspectives. And it's been interesting because in the first few, I chatted to Mitch Tonks and Will Beckett, and at that point it was much more around, okay, we've got this 3-week closure, it will probably be extended a little bit, but then we'll reopen. But it feels in the last sort of 4 or 5 days that there's been this huge recognition of just how challenging it would be. And I suppose this sort of plea or message to the government that says, look, at the minute, we have got the furloughing support, so at least our teams are looked after. There is this sort of forfeiture moratorium on rent. So although there isn't a sort of a national approach to what to do about rents at the moment. At least businesses cannot be kicked out. But I think the message now is people saying to the government, look, if you want to get out of some of this financial support by saying you are allowed to reopen, but you enforce physical distances, we all understand the principle of, actually, it's almost a case of saying, look, this is a national health emergency, and it's not viable for us to open in this guise. And if you stop the support and you almost force us to open with new parameters, you are probably going to see most of the hospitality industry go under in 6 months, because we're losing less money by being shut than we are by being open. Do you think it's going to require the government support, and do you think that's realistic? Because how does the government support such a big sector over that period of time?
Yeah, I don't know the answers, and I think I'm looking to people who are extremely positive. For example, Mitch Tonks. I love Mitch Tonks. He is a shining, positive, amazing person. And every time I talk to him, I start to think, oh yeah, maybe it's right, maybe it's good. And Mitch is over in Brixham. He's got access to all of these amazing produce from the sea, and he's focusing on being able to go down to the harbour side, go directly to the boats and the skippers who are bringing amazing fish, and he's currently getting people to buy fish at the price that he would buy it, but obviously the restaurant isn't open, and what he's looking to do is to try and maintain that method of supporting the local supplier when his restaurant reopens. He's very looking forward to how the model might work, but of course he's got to get to the point where he can open the restaurants, and that's the bit that I'm struggling with. With me, it's a big wall. I don't have a restaurant, but all of my friends.
Would you like one?
Well, come back to me on that.
One day you'll be able to pick one up at a good price, I reckon, in a couple of months, Stephen, if you're interested.
Do you know what? I think it's amazing. Restaurants are amazing. They're bloody hard work, and it's really upsetting at the moment that all of these places that give so much, they support so many people, are just currently dormant, asleep, and troublesome. I can't see a positive in it, but fingers, toes, everything crossed that we will get back to a point where they will, but they do need supporting. And the banks get support, and they're big, and other industries get support, so why not?
Yeah, well, I hope so. I think restaurants and bars for me are the fabric of society. They're almost the point of being on planet Earth. I think if anything's come out of this crisis, it's reminded us of what a social species we are, and being able to go and stay in a hotel in a coastal town, or even in a city, and being able to go to that local bar and restaurant and meet up with friends and colleagues. It's such an important sort of point and reason to being.
Yeah,
I'm utterly convinced that it will still exist in the future. I guess the doubt is how many will get through this, and how long the time period is, I suppose. But I share Mitch's optimism in the fact that we'll find a way to bounce back from this, and I love the fact that so much of what we do, particularly in the independent hospitality sector, is about those incredible suppliers. Our job as a restaurateur should be easy, really. We should just find amazing producers, amazing produce, and then not screw it up, and present it on the plate in nice environment and nice surroundings. So the more we can do as an industry to help those suppliers stay afloat and come out the other side. And it's been sort of beautifully reassuring, I suppose, to see, despite the fact that our sector is on its knees, that we're out there, feeding the NHS, looking after vulnerable people, looking after the suppliers. It reminds me of what a beautiful sector hospitality is, really, because it's all about people. It's never really been about money, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. And there are also people who are kind of using this opportunity to change all of those elements of the industry which really don't serve the customer and don't serve the supplier. And so, there is this move to try and recalibrate and change those. And I see that going on. It's just, when the opportunity will arise for them to apply it in the old sense. And one of the things that I've enjoyed is we did a Facebook Live cook along with one of my mates, Luke Van Dorn Mackay, and he's one of the team for the Slow Life, Good Life. And, you sit at home in your kitchen and you get given a recipe and a set of ingredients to cook along in real time. And, people ask questions and there's a sort of, there's a nice vibe there, but, ultimately it doesn't replace the fact that you're not in the same room in a restaurant, and ultimately it's a kind of facsimile of it, but it's a pretty good way of doing it every once in a while. And
certainly scalable, isn't it? I mean, you'd imagine if your customer sort of potential is huge, though. And if you just got everybody to chuck in a quid to kind of join you for Cook It On Live, and you had 500,000 people watching at the other end, you could probably survive for a while on that, couldn't you? See?
Yeah, I could.
Yeah,
but everything that people are doing, particularly the people that I'm working with, and this is kind of something that really does underpin the whole notion of trying to keep busy, is that all the money that has been raised thus far is going back into the community or going directly to suitable charities. And one of the crazy things is that I was working and continue to. This is one of the elements that you asked earlier about whether or not my work has changed. So I occasionally get to work with some amazing food brands, and I was working with a really brilliant food brand called Blackthorn Salt up in Ayrshire. And the brand's brilliant, but the people who have come up with the product and the brand are truly wonderful, brilliant people too. And last week was the proposed launch date of Blackthorn Salt, right? And just a little bit of background. Blackthorn Salt is a Scottish sea salt. And I'm really geeky about salt. I can talk about salt.
Yeah, go for it. No, I love it. I share your enthusiasm.
But up in Ayrshire, they've created and built this wonderful wooden structure. It's like something from Game of Thrones. It's built directly on the coastline, and they've filled this tower, it's called a kind of graduation tower, with blackthorn branches, and they pump Scottish seawater up to the top, and it trickles down gravity fed, and it kind of concentrates the brine, and the blackthorn gives it all sorts of different properties. And at the end of this wonderful, slow, natural process that gets dried by the winds, it's a kind of very natural, hands-off process, because normal processes to make salt includes creating a lot or using a lot of energy, particularly to pump it and the warmth to create crystals. Anyway, they have created this wonderful sea salt which has amazing crystals, amazing properties, and tastes fantastic, and is perhaps one of the most natural ways of doing it. So anyway, we had this launch all set up, and of course lockdown happened, and you know what they said? Okay, so we can't do it that way. Let's think about ways we can use this opportunity to try and launch a food brand in the worst time ever, and see where we can go. Hopefully, being respectful to everybody in the industry. So we came up with a couple of ideas, and we've got this wonderful product, and we're going to send it out to people in my network and say, look, you're on lockdown. Tell us what you think about this. And then, if you want to, pass on the information to somebody else, and they come back to the website and go, oh, thanks very much. Yeah, send us one. And they're doing all of this for free. Okay, so they're sending their product out for free. The second stage of this kind of really strange launch is to sell the product online and all the proceeds go to charity, which is, an amazing, generous thing. They've got the product, they've got the stock, and they're saying, okay, well, let's not sit on it, let's get it out there, but let's use it as an opportunity to, yes, get some recognition and traction, but really they want to do something with their products that they weren't originally doing. It's now a product for the time being to raise funds directly to charity. And I think, there's innovation there. There's generosity of spirit. There's a cleverness. There's an acuteness of, trying to keep something alive in the minds of people as well. So when lockdown does eventually lift, they already would have had a connection and an audience. And, I think lots of other people will do something similar, but it's not about commerce. It is about the brand. It is about supporting charities, but it's a new way to market, and I think that's forced upon them, but they're handling it in such a brilliant way.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to think, I guess, and I am seeing this positivity, whether it be the fact that more people are using their high street kind of greengrocers and butchers rather than using the big guys. Certainly the amount of sort of support that we've had from our community, it does feel like an opportunity to create a community around, say, your brand or your business, but more just around, sort of your life and your passion and what you do. And I do hope that the public remember all of these sort of, the good guys through this crisis when they were on their knees financially, but they still made the right decisions. I've seen so many chefs. I know Angela Hartnett and a lot of the crew have been sort of, working on the COVID-19 sort of NHS support. And you just think, it's incredible when they've got no income, no way of knowing if their business is going to survive. But fundamentally, it's all about looking after the community. And I hope to think that those people will be remembered off the back of this, rather than some of the multinationals who've possibly had some more negative publicity, I suppose, on accessing government funding when arguably they don't need it.
You're absolutely right. It's the backstory. It's the new provenance, isn't it? Where you get to think and see the people behind it. And, Angela and Neil, cooking pasta out of their kitchen in London and doing all of that stuff. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant. Also, Leon, making fantastic meals using their kitchens to create for the NHS workers. Loads of people creating produce, selling them and supporting people and making charitable donations. This will be the new provenance. I think there'll be like a kind of soil association, slow food or red tractor kind of branding on behavior in food, how people conduct themselves as well as how it's produced. I think that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I remember chatting a few months ago to Jamal Azal, who's from Change Please, which is the coffee producer, who supports the homeless and trains up the homeless guys to be baristas. And, he was chatting about this sort of a next level of business, I suppose, which is going to be this business with a much more of a sense of social responsibility, and that what we've seen with capitalism historically of creating these huge global brands where they don't pay their taxes and all the money disappears offshore. I think there is a new wave of entrepreneurs, and that doesn't necessarily just mean young people. I think it's just people sort of slightly cynically looking at the system and going, well, this, all the wealth being with the 1% doesn't seem to make sense. Can we do business for good? So as a deluded optimist, I like to think that we fast-tracked some of that change through this process, and that some of the good guys will come out well off the back of this. You meant go on.
Sorry, no, you can't discount how important that is, Mark, because I mean, even the very nature of you taking the time to put this podcast together, you're showcasing all of that. You're kind of a conduit for a lot of all the good in the hospitality world, and there's a sort of lack of selfishness I find in our sector, where you kind of champion other people all the time, and there's this generosity of spirit. I always think that if you go to somebody in the food world and say, how do you make that souffle, they'll tell you. Whereas in other sectors, you say, how do you make that work? And they'll go, I'm not telling you that. That's our USP. And it is important.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's why I still manage to retain some sort of bouncy optimism for the fact that we will come through this, even though on paper it looks completely and utterly catastrophic. People keep saying, you know, how you doing? And I'm like, well, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm all right, really. Considering if you looked at my life on paper, you go, oh my God, you know,
yeah.
how do you get out of that? But actually, yeah, it's exciting. And it's mainly exciting because
You
of the
and
energy of all of the people that
exactly.
we work with.
You and Mitch Tonks are directors of optimism, and a lot of us are just kind of slipstreaming your optimism and hanging on dearly to your coattails so that we can be taken along. And it requires you know um, optimism heroes and ambassadors of optimism. That's what we need.
Well, I think it's highs and lows. If you listen to my interview with Michael Bremner a few days ago from
Yes,
64 Degrees, that was the flip side of optimism.
I
We were
know.
laughing, but
Yeah,
it was pretty much kind of like, yes, we are screwed as an industry. But yeah,
but that
highs and lows.
but that's where optimism starts, by being absolutely brutally honest with
Yeah,
the
it's true.
situation.
It's
You know.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned earlier, so you've teamed up. Just going back to the
Yeah,
slow. Oh, what's it? Yeah, slow life, good life. So
yeah.
you mentioned Beth and Paul already had an online business. Was it in a similar field? Is this something that you've sort of merged together, or was it different?
Yeah, so Beth and Paul are serial entrepreneurs, and if you compare their success with a lot of other people, they are also serial overachievers. They're brilliant. Beth is this amazing well-being guru and successful award-winning author, and Paul is absolutely brilliant. He's got a background in engineering, and you say, "Hey, Paul, how are you?" "Yeah, fine. I'm learning to be a Pilates teacher now." And you just think, "Will you just stop for 5 minutes
Yeah, yeah,
and
just
stop?
showing us all
Yeah,
up.
stop being brilliant." And they had a business, Do What You Love. And it's like an online virtual school or classroom or hub where people can, just learn how to improve their lives, whether it's learning how to keep a self-help journal or meditation or being positive. It's all kind of extremely positive, and I guess is a platform for growing. And they already had an audience. And also, Beth, uh, she writes books every 5 minutes, it seems. She wrote a book, an ebook, in about 10 days recently. And you just think, wow, where do you get that energy from? And so it's been brilliant to team up with them. And so Slow Life, Good Life sits within that hub as a separate entity, but very much along a similar theme. And my wife Ellie and I have, we've learned so much from working with them, and with other people that I'm working with as well. We kind of just put our minds to trying to absorb and change and put the time aside to grow, I think, and take advantage of the time that we've been forced to have. And they've helped a great deal.
Mm. Yeah, I feel sort of guilty, disappointed, or I'm not sure what the word is, but with this enforced sort of rest and slowdown, really want to make sure that I don't waste it and make the most of it. But the reality is that I've been ridiculously busy. First of all, shutting
Yeah,
down the business, then trying to work out how to access various levels of funding and pay the team, and now looking at kind of resetting up, and we're looking at getting the takeaway started. But I do think there does seem to be an opportunity for exactly that. Slow life, good life is a great name, as is Do What You Love. It feels like we're very blessed in some ways to have been given this opportunity. If you can ignore the disastrous financial implications, there is
yeah,
an opportunity to reset. So if people want to follow Slow Life, Good Life, where do they go? And this is basically you and a lot of your sort of friends
yeah. So
in the feel-good sector. Yeah, just
exactly.
explain a little bit.
Thank you. So it's slowlifegoodlife.com. It's a website. It's a subscription based, and that's never. It's
It's a
not.
bargain though, isn't it? It's only a fiver.
Well, it is. It's a fiver, and that's the price of a pint. And I'm putting my hands in prayer position, looking up to the sky and crossing and doing everything to say, let's hope one day we'll be able to spend that fiver again in a pub, or price of a couple of cups of coffee. It's a minimal amount, and we've got a really nice group, people are engaging in the content because it's broad and wide, but it's all positive. And I pop up and say, hey, you want to know how to smoke a fish? Or somebody comes up and goes, hey, do you want to know how to create fantastic recipes using tins of tomatoes? And then we've got somebody who's going, right, now you've had all of that food, do 20 press-ups and follow me on this, and then have a meditation session, or go out and try and enjoy your hour of exercise in nature and forage for wild garlic and learn how to make sourdough. It's really nice because there's a community out there, and it's nice to have, well, it's me talking here, it's nice to have an audience even if you can't see them, but it's really a lovely way of giving, because all of that subscription, all of the proceeds of that subscription goes back into the community, and that community are certainly the people who have created a lot of the content that we're putting up, and it seems to be working. You can also follow us on Instagram, but it's the website where you go into the classrooms and have access to that content. And then the other side of it is the community page we have on Facebook, and that's where we do all our interaction, going, questions and answers, and how are you getting on, and tell us what you're doing, and the Friday night lives, they go out at 7:00, and we've had cook-alongs, we've had yoga sessions, and this
you're not teaching those, are you, Stephen?
No, but I'm trying my best to follow along. I pull a muscle opening my laptop, but we've got
I would pay a £5 for the entertainment of watching you.
Well, you're in then. Okay, it's fine. And
can I send you the outfit?
I've got there's the sort of green goddess, the lycra leotard. I have to dust that off. And this Friday we've got a pub quiz with an amazing local brewery, Gilton and Flint, and so it's like being a TV producer in a way, creating content which is hopefully engaging, and building an audience. But the idea behind it is the kind of classic telethon idea, trying to raise money. Same with the virtual food festivals as well. Really trying to. Where's
the best place to go to find the virtual food festival? Has that got its own?
Yeah. So thank you. We've got our own domains, which is the virtualfoodfestival.org, and that is where a lot of our information is based around the suppliers and the content, but that also links you directly to the revenue generating aspect on the crowdfunder platform, which is a brilliant way to engage as well as help create an income that will support the suppliers that we're championing. You put up rewards, but the big production element of that is held on YouTube Live. So we've got a YouTube Live virtual food festival on YouTube, and we do regular food festivals, which are all day festivals with amazing chefs, but we're also interspersing that with programs that we call virtual food festival fringes. We did one on Sunday, which was meeting a supplier, chatting to a supplier. I interview those. Jack Stein, who's Rick Stein's son, and Ross Geach, who is an ex-chef, but now an amazing grower producer in Padstow. They come on and have a chat. We have the opportunity for people to engage in the front row, we call it. People have paid a couple of quid to be there on the front row, and they can ask questions as well. So, that's another platform. And the other people that I was talking about, the Salt, which is Blackthorn sea salt. We're currently creating a website for those guys where you can hopefully buy the salt online, and all those proceeds go to charity as well. So same as you, busy.
Yeah, busy. You're certainly not bored, are you? I had Jack Stein on the podcast actually a few weeks ago. He was hilarious. He's good value. Very, very funny.
Were his kids sort of like messing around in the background?
No, I think he was fairly quiet. There couldn't have been any kids because he used quite a lot of expletives, particularly when describing the Daily Mail. So I don't think they would have been allowed to listen. It was definitely an X-rated podcast.
Yeah,
that one. He was quite cross.
Yeah,
did you? Yeah, he was quite angry.
Yeah, he is. He's passionate though, and
that was great. It was great. I gave him a standing ovation because he was, he went on a 10-minute rant, and it's well worth a listen to anybody who's not heard it. So check it out.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you for sparing the time and staying so positive. Oh, go on, sorry.
Sorry, I talked over you there. You do that so well. You allow people to just kind of be themselves, and I think it's a brilliant platform. And this forum it's always a pleasure to be on, Mark. And thanks for giving us the opportunity and spreading the optimism too.
Yeah, no worries. No, thank you. It's lovely to have such a network of good egg, positive human beings who are out there doing some good stuff and leading, I suppose, on that. Responding positively and creatively and going, look, I'm not just going to sit under a desk. I might be doing it occasionally, sitting under my desk and sobbing, but I think most of us are getting out there and going, okay, we've got to make the best of this. And aren't we lucky that either, we're not, we're not working in the NHS and making life and death decisions at the end of the day. We're just trying to have some fun with food and drink, aren't we? So, look, thank you, Stephen, and I'll put some links up on the website myself for where to go. But hugely appreciated. Good luck. I hope all of this sort of stuff works out and you find a way of paying the mortgage. But stay fit and healthy, and we'll catch up again soon. Yeah, thank you. Will do. And as soon as we've finished here, I'll go and get that green lycra leotard on and send you the yoga class. Perfect. I will. I'll pay my $5 and I will be there supporting. Thanks, Stephen. Cheers, mate. Okay, well, look, I cannot apologise enough if that is your closing image in your minds, is Stephen and I doing an online yoga class. I am very, very sorry. But hopefully you enjoyed our chat, and I will be back on the air again very soon with another guest. Pop over to humansofhospitality.co.uk and I will put a few links up to the various websites that Stephen and I chatted about. And have a great week. Thank you so much.